This is a very interesting story of a French girl, very good at heart, very good looking, and a very sincere devotee. So, during a Christmas marathon in Paris, the devotees would go to the train stations, and the girls, particularly, would go to the trains and distribute books to the people. And as the train started, they would jump off. So, this young French girl, small girl, very delicate and very sincere, she was a very good book distributor. And she happened to approach a man on the train, in a first class compartment, and she gave him a Krishna book. He was a big man, a polished man, and he looked at the book, looked at her, and he became very angry for no reason. Then he stood up, he took the book and almost tore it into half. Then he threw the book, Krishna book, on the ground, stood up on it, began stomping on it. And this book distributor girl, she broke down in tears, Then he grabbed her. He dragged her by her hair through the compartment and literally threw her off the train. Train had just started, and he threw her off the train, and she, fell on the platform, dislocated her shoulder. The blood was oozing, and landed on her face and bruises for weeks, and she fractured a bone. So the devotees who were nearby, they rushed. Somebody told your Hare Krishna girl is lying there. So the other devotees rushed and carried her back to the temple. And they were cursing the man, who could do such a thing. But she was so enthusiastic. Somehow she recovered. Just after 4 days, she was back on her job. She started the distribution service again in just next 4 days. So this part is over now. Now coming back to this man, he was a banker from Spain, a very wealthy banker, and he had come to Paris for some business. Morning he came, and the evening he took this train. And the train, this was a train going to Madrid, Spain. So that takes, a day or a half, whatever it takes. So he kept that book as a joke, He put it in his bag, and once he landed home, so he met his wife and said, "So how was your visit, trip?" He says, "Yeah, it was all good." And, then he took out that book. While I was in the train, when some nonsense girl, beggar girl came, and she wanted to, can you imagine, try to sell me this crap. So see what I did to the book. And he put it on the kitchen table, and he laughed. And his wife was all smiles also. Anyway, so it was lying on the kitchen table, a damaged Krishna book. So the next day, the wife had gone shopping. The husband had gone to the bank. Maid comes. And she sees the book, a nice looking book, lying on the kitchen table. So she thought that it was one of the family book that somehow has been damaged by a car run over or whatever. So she dusts it off, and she repairs it to the best she can, and put it in the library in the man's study. Everybody forgot about it. A year goes by. And after this incident, the man's life just goes down the hill. So as the year passes by, his wife one day dies in a terrible car accident, head on. His son disappeared. He became a drug addict. He was a drug addict in last 1 year. He ran away. He just stopped coming home. And his daughter eloped with some low class, some bum practically. So he ended up all alone, very sad, shattered, in deep depression. Kids have left, wife is no more, and here is a man, devastated man. So he's sitting in his study, and all he can think about is committing suicide. So, okay, he pulls the drawer, takes out his gun, and as he loads his gun, he thinks, okay, let me go through Bible a little bit. So he wasn't a religious man, but anyway, at the fag end of life, even non-religious people think of God. So he was looking at his books, looking for Bible. So he saw the Krishna book, a repaired one, which was 1 year back repaired by the maid. He spotted that book. It was a colorful book, so he thought, oh, so then he took it out and opened it up. It was the Krishna book. He opened the page somewhere in between, not the first page, and that's where Vasudeva was preaching to Kamsa, who was ready to actually kill his wife Devaki, his sister, and Vasudeva's wife Devaki. So Vasudeva is preaching that, my dear brother-in-law, body is perishes, but the living entity doesn't. The living entity goes from one body to the next, like the worm who carefully, places the front part of his body, then picks up the next portion and goes on like that. So that man, when he read, it struck him that, oh, my wife is not actually dead, and she has just changed her body. And he never thought of this thing in his life. That gave him, just that one line gave him enough faith not to kill himself, So he put the gun back. And then the man thought, okay, now I'm getting sleepy, let me sleep first. 2-3 hours he slept, then again he woke up. He was next morning supposed to go to work, but anyway he was not going to go. So he again pulled out, took that book out, and he went back to read it. Entire early morning he read it. For 3 days he stayed home. He didn't go to work. He just read that book. And he had a complete change of heart. The book gave him so much solace that what had happened was his karma, that he had to be forbearing, he had to be tolerant, that his wife has only changed body. So he read that, he thought about it. Then he looked at the back of the book and saw the address and phone number. It was French. Obviously he spoke French, so it was a French book actually. So he called up the temple in Paris. And when he spoke, they told, where are you from? He said, I am from Madrid. They said, we have Madrid. This is the address. So this gentleman, a year after seriously injuring a devotee girl, 1 year after, he is at the doorstep of Hare Krishna temple in Madrid in his business suit, with his expensive came with an expensive car, and he came to the temple. A young temple president. He opened the door. When he opened the door, he saw somebody kneeling, a person in expensive suit, and crying, please forgive me, please forgive me. He was a new, fresh man, this president. He said, "Sir, excuse me." He just thought maybe the person is somebody mad. And he was just repeating, "Please forgive me for what I have done." And the he said, the temple, "Sir, can we just come in and talk?" So they came in, and he offered him some sweetmeat, some prasadam. And, he had his Krishna book with him. And he told what all he did, he destroyed the book and hurt the devotee. He said, "I'm so sorry. Is there anything I can do?" So the temple president, he didn't know what to tell him. So he was at a loss. Then the man opened his briefcase and took his checkbook out. He wrote out a check for a large, a handsome donation. And he left. That was during the week time, and Sunday again this gentleman showed up. While the president was lecturing, he saw the back of the temple intently listening this banker. Like that, few weeks go by. He was not very old, some 40s something. Young and successful gentleman. So one day, right after the lecture, he comes up to the president and says, "How can I become a devotee? I want to move into the temple." It was very hard to believe because people who are, rich and successful, they generally don't become the full-time volunteers, So then they were thought, then anyway he moved in, and what service he got? Treasurer, obviously. So he was the temple treasurer. Few months go by and time comes for Christmas marathon in December. So he asked, "Sir, Prabhus, can I go for marathon also?" Every devotee goes during that time. He was a little older, but they said, "Okay, you can go." So he was distributing books at the train station, doing the trains, 1 year. Then after the marathon, he announces, "Please excuse me, I'm not interested in this treasury service. I want to be a book distributor." So then he became a regular book distributor, and then shortly after that came a festival in Italy. So in Italy festival, he goes, and there as he is walking in the festival, from the other side he sees a girl coming this side. And he sees the same girl, it's been 1.5 years now, whom he had hurt so badly on the Paris railway station. So he saw her coming, and he just kneeled down and he started crying. "Please forgive me. I have offended you." Then she was like, first she couldn't make out what's going on. Then she remembered, and it was beyond her. Somebody who was so demoniac is now standing in this Sankirtan festival as a devotee. So she was like completely flabbergasted. So anyway, devotees are not supposed to hold a grudge. So she said, "It's all right, Prabhu." So what an amazing story. How this is Lord Chaitanya's mercy. Just like Jagai and Madhai, they hurt Lord Nityananda, but they were delivered. We see that, the devotees, the demons sometimes, they hurt devotees, they hurt the mission, but in the end they get delivered. So many amazing pastimes like this. On these pastimes, this movement is built.